Hey guys! You may have seen my upload spam of Battle Tower floor clears these past few months, and boy what a ride it has been. I finally collected the maximum possible demon badges and reached past floor 999. At first I thought I'd make this video when I reached the top 1%, but it seems that it's hard locked now because of the first come first serve rules. But either way, making it to the top 2% as a completely free to play player feels like a real achievement. I probably would have even made top 1% if I had started grinding earlier. Now I want you to remember the free to play part in particular because it's quite an important factor in why the Battle Tower glory in particular is the real endgame of ZZZ. I want to point out that this video is more directed to the players that play the game more than just to get the daily and weekly rewards and are finding fun in doing challenge runs in the various modes of the game. But if you're a casual player, there might still be interesting things about the game I could shed a light on that you may not have thought about. Let's kick things off with part 1, the DPS check modes, and what currently is considered to be the endgame by majority of the player base. I see many players mulling over deadly assault scores and shield defense clear times. While these are valid challenges, anything past the point of getting an S rank isn't really testing your skill anymore. It becomes more of a test on which agents you pulled and what disc drive stat RNG you rolled. These DPS check modes are what I will still consider the gacha part of the game, where it's mostly gonna challenge your luck on stats and how much you chase the meta, which I personally don't think is a meaningful challenge. So players who wail on the game will be at a huge advantage, especially when competing for the top percentage leaderboard, which is to be expected. While being skillful as a free-to-play player can bring you far, you're most likely gonna have to use the current meta agents which have the shield buffs in their favor. I asked around in some Zenless discords, including the official one, if anyone knows if there are top 1 to 3% free-to-play players in Deadly Assault, and haven't come across any. But in contrast, a lot of them say that either dolphins or whales are usually at the top. Oh, and as a funny unrelated note, I found out that people actually cheat to get to the top percentages, which is like, why?
Why?
So back on topic, I personally know a giga whale that say they don't have to put much effort to reach the top 1%. So I'm assuming that it's not possible for free-to-play to challenge whales based on skill alone? I'm open to correction here, it's not easy finding out this information. Next I want to talk about freedom of playstyle and agent usage in the DPS check modes. You're kind of forced to play a certain way, especially in agent rotations, to maximize your damage output to stay competitive. While there may be some room to improvise, you're at the mercy of the boss's RNG. If the RNG isn't favorable, you most likely have to reset and hope for a better set of moves to facilitate your DPS. As for agent usage, if you want to compete, you might be forced to use agents that you aren't particularly a fan of if the meta agents happen to not be what you like. I would like to remind you that this context is for competing for top percentages and not just clearing for S ranks. I have immense respect for those who can get 20k with A rank agents only. To conclude this section, I recently watched a video that was talking about Deadly Assault in the earlier days where they claimed it actually allowed for skill expression. While I agree it was more lenient in the past, but even then it wasn't truly a mode for freestyling or testing your technical skill, or enemy knowledge for that matter. So what does the Battle Tower glory have over these other modes? First off, the mode primarily promotes the use of technical expertise, meaning performing certain interactive actions will net you extra points in your floor clear results. For example, performing an air combo or juggle will add to the combo counter on the top right. Then performing another interactive action like perfect dodge adds to the counter, which increases your score multiplier as you deal damage. This can add up quickly if you know how to launch groups of enemies and keep them juggled, since hitting 3 or more enemies is another action that can add to the combo counter. There are also many ways to stack combos on bosses, like performing assist counters, which is a combination of perfect dodging and perfect assist in one action. Those can add up to 3 counts of combo right away. So in short, this mode rewards you the most when you engage with enemies as technically as possible. While Deadly Assault does have a performance point category, it's limited to a set amount of points and have very few actions that add to it. Some of the criteria to earn these points isn't even skill based, you just need to use the quote-unquote correct team setup, like the Butcher one where you have to proc disorders. In contrast, a huge point bonus in the tower comes from no damaging a floor, meaning you have to clear the floor without getting hit. This will help you in getting the Demon Badge, which is sort of an S rank plus. It affects your top percentage score, which is the main goal of climbing the tower. The more badges you have, the closer you get to the top. No damaging floors requires you to know the enemies inside and out, and be able to react on the fly, maximizing your interactions with them to get more combo bonus. The RNG of enemy attacks become a platform for you to showcase your ability to adapt to different situations, which means that you're not required to only play that one fixed rotation that optimizes your damage output, and that allows for a more free-flowing combat experience. What a reset would be in Deadly Assault would instead be an opportunity in the tower. So how does that all make the Battle Tower the true endgame? It's because you are truly tested for your mastery over your agents and enemy familiarity. You need to know all your agents' iframes and how to chain them as needed to keep up aggression and interactivity. And while we're on the topic of agents, you are permitted a much wider range of team compositions. Even teams that don't activate the additional passives can score high so long as you play well. So you have a lot more freedom to experiment with agents you like to play with instead of being locked to optimal teams like in the DPS check modes. The fact that I could make it this far as a free-to-play shows that your stats are taking a back seat and playing well takes priority. While yes, you can easily smash some floors if you have a bunch of M6 meta agents, you still need to know how to deal with enemies in order to clear with the no damage bonus. My Giga Whale friend is currently at the top 2% in the NA server, and they've mentioned a few times that it's not easy on certain floors. They still have to try. I would say the main advantage from having powerful units is that it makes it easier and faster to clear the floors, but that's about it. It's not impossible for one with less powerful units to be able to make up for it or even score higher if you have the skill to do it. This makes for a more even playing field and a better competitive ladder. However, I do want to state that the tower is not all good. Because you're interacting so much with the enemies, you will see the worst that the game has to offer as well, like those frogs that jump around and have so little actual interaction, or lingering hitboxes that make no sense like the Miasmic Fiend mines or Pompey's ground explosion thing. One of the genuinely PTSD-inducing attacks is the flamethrower ones. The damn attack is a hit scan even though the flames need time to travel. Basically, you'll face a bunch of attacks which hitboxes don't match the visuals. Oh, and before I forget, fuck delayed attacks. I don't care what soul slop you're a fan of, but having a years-long wait for an attack to wind up only for the actual attack to be lightning fast is just cheap. It cuts the combat flow like a needle skipping track on a vinyl record, making the player stand there like a dumbass. I'm sorry, it's not a test of patience, it's peak trash and lazy enemy design. Whoops, sorry you had to see that. That's my action game brain getting triggered. Well, jokes aside, one of the biggest enemies is actually the camera and lock-on, especially for controller players, which I've talked about extensively in another video. It becomes a huge problem when trying not to get hit on floors with multiple enemies since it will sometimes rob you of visibility or target an enemy you didn't intend to. There are workarounds like running around to reposition the camera, but it really gets in the way of the combat flow. They need to fix this. On the opposite end, you will also experience the best the game has to offer, like Miasmic Jane, Tepes, Hugo, and a few more. They will push you to your limits in quick decision making and adapting to their attack patterns. Sometimes you'll even be able to predict their incoming attacks based on the overall pace of the fight. I cannot understate how good the flow state feels when the skills you'll inevitably obtain while climbing become second nature. And it doesn't just stop there, because the higher you climb, the enemies start having new moves and randomize their attacks even more than usual, on top of increasing their overall speed. It's like playing on a turbo mode that slowly ramps up as you reach the higher floors. So the challenge actually has a progression in difficulty in dealing with attack variety and not just the shallow idea of difficulty like HP bloating. This part is a short one to highlight the Miasma mechanic actually being a boon instead of a grievance, which I've seen many players complain about. Since I don't use the strongest units, Miasma actually helps me in dealing damage to the enemies, and that speeds up the clears so the fights don't drag out for too long. You can only play flawlessly for so long before you start making mistakes, or at least not having a long fight lowers the chances of making them. And contrary to the belief of certain content creators with skill issue, you don't need a rupture agent. Just dodge counters, defensive assists, and ultimates will break the shields quite easily. Add on the fact that it gives you energy when you break the shields, that just lets you snowball, especially on groups of smaller enemies. This allows you to engage with your agent's kits more often. The damage mitigation from the shields isn't a problem as it is in the DPS check mode, since you are not in a race against time to deal as much damage as possible. So yeah, the tower even turns Miasma into a positive. Overall, I think the focus on Deadly Assault and shield defense is one that's been misplaced. Like I said, there are fine challenges, but they're ultimately content to attract players to pull for the latest agents and provide only a limited scope of difficulty. It also makes players that have spent money on the game feel that it was worth it, basically the business end, which is 100% expected for a gacha game. I think the tower has been severely overlooked because there aren't rewards past a certain point, and also there's a huge bias in content creators to cover Deadly Assault more since it's so popular. I also think a lot of people dismiss it because they're intimidated by the potential difficulty and the time required to learn the skill to climb. But I think the time spent is well worth it because the reward is being able to play your favorite game skillfully and in detail. I really hope I can bring more people to give the tower a shot and climb past the first 100 floors, because that's where the real endgame begins. I just want to be clear that this isn't a dig at the players that find fun in the DPS modes and feel like they can express their skills there, but I think those modes are limiting and that they can express their skills in the tower to a much higher degree. Hopefully we get a good replacement once this limited event ends, because it would be a shame if we didn't get a mode that highlights the game's strongest aspect, its combat. Oh, and before I end this, a big shout out to Hollow Zero game mode. I'm a huge fan of it because it's mainly promoting having fun with the game instead of worrying about stats. I would even argue that Hollow Zero is the real game behind all the gimmicks. That's all I have to shill about the Battle Tower glory for now. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Stay crazy and keep styling. Jester signing off.